I got started late, I think, compared to a lot of people. It was basically a passion of mine, like to do theater and just performing in general ever since I was in like grade 4 or 5. And then I went to a high school in grade 9 that did like nothing to further my development, I think, in that sense. So I ended up switching high schools and met my friend Eric. By grade 11, he comes to school one day and says, "Oh, hey man, I got like this audition for Degrassi." And I'm like, "What?" And then he booked it, which was like super weird. And then I signed with the same agent as his, and it's kind of like how it started for me. This profession and this career, for me anyways, has allotted me nothing but time, nothing but like free time to work on myself and to work on relationships. I would say in that sense, like I have chosen a career that is very people oriented, and like I get to hang out with a lot of different people in different age groups, and the career itself is what's helped me, I think, become a more well-rounded human and have more strong relationships because I can just put time into them and like talk to people. I can also spend a lot of time alone, which I think helps relationships ultimately. I would say it's actually changed for the worse. I think at first acting was like incredibly sensational to me. Like it was just a very surface thing that I didn't really understand what it asked of you, didn't understand what just being in the industry demands, from everything to like rejection to getting the part, and like those can be one and the same feeling of like stress and panic. It is something that is so outside of your control so much of the time, and so much of it is based on surface things that I fear for. Like I fear for, you know, this is silly, but like I fear for my hair. I fear I'm gonna go bald one day, and then that will like throw a big wrench into this thing. It just seems like there are so many useless, meaningless things to your life that would end up affecting this career. Obviously you're doing what you love, but you're also there for like 12, 15, 16 hours a day, and like that's hard. And doing it like 3 or 4 days a week, like that can be a lot. So when I was like 18 or 19, I had booked a show in Winnipeg, and it was like a 6-episode miniseries, like a horror anthology, and I was booked to be one of the main 4 characters. And it was a 3-month shoot in Winnipeg, and it was like my first time kind of going, and I discovered upon arrival that I had very manic mental health problems that I didn't know I had, and they kind of were spawned from the thought of isolation and like the thought, because I was only there a day when this happened, and I realized I have to be here alone for such a large amount of time. So I ended up having this huge meltdown in this very bad episode that caused me to walk away from the project and come home. I would say in the moment, it was the worst experience for sure, but I have no regrets. Like I have no moment of me that thinks I should have done anything differently in that situation. Like booking Coroner was amazing, that moment. That was like a long process, 4 auditions and like 3 months in between from the first to the thing. And when I booked it, I was in like a very bad place financially and in my life. Like I just didn't have my shit together. I was unmotivated for a very, very long time, and I felt very complacent. And it wasn't until like maybe when COVID hit that I sort of started being like, this is not how I want to spend the rest of my life. Like I don't want to just waste away the time that I'm not acting. So that was sort of like the motivation that kind of got me to start writing. Writing is the thing that like gets me to start every part of my day. Like it's what gets me out of bed and what gets me going, and then from there my brain feels like it's working for the rest of the day, and I can start thinking about things with more like depth as opposed to just these like surface thoughts that everyone has, you know. It is a fantasy. It's not geared towards young adults. Like it's not a young adult fantasy, it's more like an adult. But then when I say adult fantasy, that makes it sound like it's porn, which it's not. The Spark Notes is basically that it's the way mental health is often forgotten in religious societies, and the way it's like seen as something that's more of like a supernatural curse, or like something not real, not actually happening in your mind. So it basically follows a host of characters that have their own set of messed up problems that they don't even understand because they're from a place that has told them those things aren't real. thinking about leaving Coroner makes me sad to think about, incredibly, because not only is it the loss of like friends and family, it's the loss of like stability for that time and like the loss of something concrete that you're doing often. I also am very bad with the idea of finality in any sense. If I could, I would work with the same crew forever, like never change them. But obviously you can't do that because it's amazing to meet new people, but leaving is hard for me for sure. Like my character is like very close with his grandfather in the show, and me and him, they just give us so much liberty to like bend the script and just have fun, because that's where the relationship ends up coming out. It never comes out just reading it alone, and I don't read my lines before the moment. Like I'll look over them in the trailer, but I read them usually for the first time in the scene, and we'll find it there. I would say that starting late was good. I really liked the fact that like I didn't get into this until I was a little older. Like I had a very, very normal childhood. Have your youth, have your childhood, have your life. Like I'm still in it, obviously, and like I still would be panicked of the idea of like booking a role that I travel across the world for the rest of my life, or like that. I'm not even ready for that yet. Like I still think I need to have more youth, even though I am getting up there. Well, the only other thing I would say is don't do it. don't do it.
Oh, that's amazing.